Welcome to the Smart Entrepreneur Decoded. For people of my generation growing up in India, entrepreneurship was never a first choice as a career. In fact, I recall my father reacting quite negatively when I remotely suggested that I would like to set up my own business. Capital was always a problem, but just the thought that you want to be an entrepreneur was not taken too kindly. How much things have changed today? Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur. It is socially acceptable to a point where young people feel a certain compulsion to set up a company of their own. But is that really a good thing? Do you really have to start your own company to display your entrepreneurship skills? What about the hundreds and thousands of companies, small, medium, large, that have leaders growing the company multifold year after year? Are they not entrepreneurs? Are they not displaying entrepreneurship skills? Or does everybody have to go through the traditional grind, so to speak, and create that beautiful story where they went into the valley of death, as the investors call it, or they went through a grind where they put everything in, they went all in with their life, careers, everything, and then came out triumphant? Is that the only way entrepreneurship plays out? To answer that, today I have a very accomplished professional helping me with the answers to that. He has worked for over 2 decades in leadership positions across the world. I mean, if you read his bio, it looks like you're traveling from country to country, from Libya to Qatar to Thailand to Vietnam to Singapore and now Indonesia, where he currently resides as CEO of Prosegur. His rich experience and his experience in growing companies, mergers, acquisitions, turnarounds is something all entrepreneurs can learn from. Join me in welcoming Mr. Anuj Zinzuwadia. Welcome, Anuj.
Thank you, Nalin. Thank you for having me on the show.
So I haven't known you for as long as some of my other friends, but in the short time I have known you, although you work for a large corporate, but you head a P&L in Indonesia, but you always speak like an entrepreneur. Your whole approach, from your body language, the way you approach things, I have visited you in office, the way your team reacts to you, is almost like you are running it's like an entrepreneurial setup. What is your view? Is
The fact,
entrepreneurship only that traditional classic story, or are people like you also entrepreneurs in spirit, or at least in action, in a different kind of way? What's your view?
very much. Let me break this down. First of all, even though I'm in corporate life, I have a job that pays me a salary at the end of the month, and at the end of the year, if I've done well, it gives me a bonus, and what, right? So it gives me. That's how I create value for myself. But having said that, it is my business, all right, and ownership is one of the main things that I feel towards my job or towards my work. This is mine, and I suppose that's the reason you kind of got that feeling came to my office, that as if as if this was my own business. And the fact remains that it is. Treated that way. I have never, very early in life, I realized that if, one of the main things that differentiates a successful leader from others is the ownership that the person takes. And I've taken. I've also been, right now I must say that I'm also very fortunate by having, being working for Prosegur, because it is also still privately held, majority is still privately held by by the Preventative family, and they allow me to be myself, right? So it's a very patient company. It allows you to be yourself. It appreciates the ownership that you take, and most importantly, you are trusted. And I suppose that kind of brings that entrepreneur, in me. And it's always been that way. So I've always been very fortunate in having bosses who believed in me. Had to do. I've taken some really big risks that normally companies would not allow a person to take, but they have backed me, and that's where the success has come from. So honestly, yes, okay. The big difference is I have not invested my own money into this operation that I'm running, but I have invested my time and my life, and money is something that you get as a reward, which you can count. But the biggest rewards come from you know rewards come from the work that you do and from the success that comes in the work, the life that you live around you. So honestly, it's the same thing. And plus the responsibility that you feel towards the money that you are backed with is phenomenal. I don't see any difference. I mean, every time I cut a check, or we spend or we buy, whether it's 10,000 rupiah or it's a billion, I feel rich, as if it's my own money. So, so basically, you have to take ownership, and that
So tell me something. You probably had this quality that you take accountability and ownership of what you do right from the start, and that's why you have been so successful. Were you born in a business family, or uh, that the idea of doing your own business never occurred to you early, or what is it? Do you feel it now? Do you want to go and do something now?
No, honestly, I don't think much ahead. I generally tend to focus on now more than anything else. So yeah, I mean, I have been told by a few friends, including yourself, that I should be doing things on my own, and I have the qualities of doing something big. Uh, but yeah, I was born, to answer your question, I was born into a business family. We were big contractors in Gujarat. But I was born in the big family, and I've always seen, uh, no one in my family ever had a job. So I was probably one of the first people to go and get one. So yeah, very different. I did not know how corporate life works. So when I got in, took a job. So in fact, there was nobody to guide me on careers at that time. So I remember being offered Coca-Cola as a sales management sales executive. I'd finished my MBA, so they were recruiting MBAs into sales position. And then I was I was offered a job in then called Group for Securitas as a branch manager of a guarding company. And the branch manager of the guarding company is because it felt like it was my own business. They told me it's doing really badly, and got a big union problem, and so it all sounded really exciting and like kind of a general management job, which is more close to doing your own business or taking more responsibility instead of getting onto trucks and selling. If you today, was that a bad decision? I don't know. I don't know how the future would have been. But logically, if I came from a service class family, they would have said, obviously, go join Coke. Coca-Cola. I mean, there was no two ways about it. FMCG was the thing.
Interesting. Tell me something. In all the countries you worked, were there countries where you had to set everything up from scratch, or you went into a set company and then grew it from there?
No, setting up from scratch was more to do with Libya. In India, when I started working, it was already an established company, but lots of problems. We had massive union issues, and our business was very small. We were competing with the local players. Singapore was the same story. We didn't have union issues in Singapore, but then Singapore was an established company. Libya was a startup from scratch, so we had to go and we had partners. So I landed up in Libya with two bags, and met these partners who turned out to be somebody who don't want partners to be. So I had to pay them off and got new partners, uh, fantastic partners, and then the business just for the first year I remember every time I would get a call for a meeting, I'd get super excited because I would have no work and I'd just sitting in over there and doing Skype calls, with my wife, who's now my wife. And then one day she decides to kind of pack everything that she was doing and come in and live with me. And then and we kind of changed a bit of luck and we found the right partners. We started the business and it just zoomed up. And we never said no to anything that came across. And we
That
start we
must have been
supposed to start a garden company and we did everything else.
that must have been a fun conversation. Hey, we are shifting to Libya.
Oh, like Libya? Everyone's like, even today, when somebody says, "Where have you worked?" I say, "Libya." Like, "In Libya?" It's like, yeah.
Well, Libya was a lot calmer then than it's now. Uh,
Actually, yeah, we got out of the right time, just 2 months before it all happened.
so, entrepreneurs always are told that it's the team that's important. Who's your team? And entrepreneurs struggle to form successful teams or form teams where there is enough diversity: men, women, older people, different races, gender. You have worked in more than half a dozen countries very successfully. How do you form teams in a country where you walk in for the first time and you don't know anybody? You don't know the local culture. You walk in. How do you form a successful team?
Yeah, I think you said you used the right word for one of the words. First and foremost, any country that you go to, I think one of the things that I've realized first you need to learn the culture, not the language, the culture. You must understand the culture. One of the first places I went and worked was in Qatar and outside of India, and I book on how to behave in Qatar, or how to kind of be, because there were actually books at that time as to how to behave in a you know in an Arab country and or a Middle Eastern country. And one of the things that they it said was how to talk to a sheikh, how when you meet a local person, how to behave, how to sit, where do you kind of the slight difference between making them feeling that you are their servant, or making you feel that yes, you are there for business, and the way you gain respect. That was a difference, right? So you need to start understanding cultures. Also, don't discuss politics, for example. It's not your country. You respect people, you have an opinion, keep to yourself. You don't go around saying things that you do not understand more than half of what you're listening or what you read about, right? So those are a few things that you actually understand. So first and foremost, culture. How people react to you when you say what you cannot say. For example, you don't bang hands on tables in Indonesia. You do. You shut a conversation, people are never going to talk to you again. They may be your best friend at that point in time and they love you, they call you for every meeting. The moment you bang your hand on a table, that's it. It's end of the story in Indonesia. You do not do that. While in Thailand, you do not pull up one director who's working for you or one of the executives in front of another executive. You just talk to people. You talk to people in closed doors. You can say, abuse, do whatever you want to do, but you have got to do it, behind closed doors. Those are things you have to learn about culture. And once you do, then people start uh, kind of relating to you because they respect you as you are respecting them first. Do not people respect. So one of the things I learned was just because and that was in my younger days. I was very brash. I was very arrogant, and I obviously thought saying, "Look, I'm the boss. I'm the managing director of this country. I mean, you better talk to me properly. Don't sit till I tell you to sit. Those are silly ideas that you had before." Which very quickly changed. When you get into real life and suddenly you struggle from people. Talking behind your back, on your face, they respect you because they have to. That's the position, the power of the position. But back, they just, don't have absolutely no respect whatsoever. And that all translates into them sending you reports on time, for example. They won't send it to you. They'll trouble they'll just create unnecessary hassles.
So, from an entrepreneur's perspective, because I know that you have invested into startups as well, although you didn't start a company yourself, you've set companies up in various countries, and like I said, with very successful teams. From a startup's perspective, and if you look at the two geographies that both of us can most relate to, India and Indonesia, with the kind of diversity we have, it's almost like multiple countries in one country, right? So the culture thing holds even there. What would be advice for a startup, the founder, of setting up his first core team? What should he look for?
First of all, definitely people right? So if you're starting, when you're doing a startup, you've got to do it with people you totally know, you're comfortable with. You're comfortable enough to be yourself, so not someone you want to be or you are trying to be, but someone you can totally be yourself with. You don't have to be try to be humble in front of these people, because humility anyways come. They are your friends. They are, people who know you. They know where your heart is. More than because sometimes people can't really articulate themselves as to what they're thinking, but they know, right? So first of all, I think definitely a team of people that you know. I had made a mistake in the past of starting a company and getting into the business with somebody I really didn't know well. Turned out to be a crook in the end, so it does happen. So I think definitely for people you trust, that's number one. Number two, keep it about the keep it all on paper. Even if you're best of friends, you've been friends, or you're all your brothers, you still need to, or sisters, you still need to have everything above board. So, have it all contracted, have it all, properly formed. Governance should be very clean in such cases, because most of the startups don't realize the importance of governance. Today everyone's kind of, and the other day we were having a conversation where today kids are straight away going for valuation instead of creating values in companies, right? I mean, all that is very good. You might, one day after 2 years get a valuation of, some $100 million. But if your papers and your governance are not in place, you might lose that opportunity by the time you kind of, so it's very important to have a proper, an outsourced corporate secretary that will cost you a few $100, every month. But good to have it all nice and clean, your books in order and everything proper. So definitely people and definitely a clean start.
Yeah. And that's very good advice, because startups tend to cut corners when it comes to governance,
Right.
accounting, and things like that. And it bites them when they are just ready to take off. That's where they realize the value of it, and then it's too late. Now, I have known you to invest in a few startups yourself. What is it that you look for in a startup? What is that tipping point that makes you say think yes or no?
Well, it all starts with advice, right, from friends, and some friends are actually doing some kind of investment. But I think it's finally the tipping point is the person who's actually, is taking the company forward. I think that's the tipping point. Before doing any kind of an investment into a startup, you need to know the person, you need to know the personality, you need to know the background of the person. One of the things I do look for, when I invest is how hungry is this person, and that I think kind of underlines that is the person gritty. When you talk to the other day when we had those interviews with the startups that we were investing in, the kind of questions we asked were difficult. And there were people who actually, their wheels came off, and then we decided not to invest into those companies. And there were people who, stuck to their belief and, and the grit that they showed during that, 10-15 minute interview.
Yeah.
That is what really tips me over. So it's the kind of people, and then of course, then you're making investments in companies that you don't know about. Also, then that's. But yeah, if I know, if I'm in a position of making a choice where I have more time to decide, then I think it's the people that I'm.
So you look at the credibility of the person, right? Credibility is
Credibility. Well, a fresh graduate from IIT does not have any credibility, honestly, except that he's an IIT graduate. I think more than credibility, I think it's to see as to how clear he is or she is about their vision. Entrepreneurship starts with a vision, right? Saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do. It could be any small, big business, doesn't matter. It all starts with a vision. It all starts with a belief in the vision. It starts with the understanding of what's there in the market, what's not there in the market. It starts with, so when you talk to an entrepreneur, who's into a startup, there are a few things that has to come across really clearly. Number one, they know the market. Number two, they know their product really well. Number three, they believe in their product as to how it's going to work. Number four, they have a vision of how this product is going to grow. If they don't have these four things that are clear in their head, then I don't think there's a fifth question coming. Because of these four things need to have absolute clarity.
yeah. So it brings me to another question, which is very close to the way your career has spanned out. You've you'll see so many people in corporate life. Of course, you see it all the time. People who are just stuck to their city for some reason or the other. But even entrepreneurs, it is okay to start a business because it is your town. I get that. But very often, you don't see entrepreneurs stepping out and starting a business where the problem exists, moving out of their comfort zone. which is how important is mobility for an entrepreneur or even a corporate executive? How important is that? Because people
You
tend to
see,
start, I mean, people, for example, I've seen entrepreneurs who are trying to solve a problem that is acute, say in Bengal, but they still want to do it in Bangalore because they live there. So, is mobility an issue? Do you see that?
I wouldn't say mobility is an issue. It's a very pertinent question, though. But I would like to reply it in a different manner. Now, when I am to start a business, I am going to start a business where I know the geography. Number one. Number two, coming back to culture, right? So I know the culture and I know how this is going to work. Number three, I've got these friends who are going to back me. So if I'm starting a restaurant, for example, or say I want to start a cloud kitchen, right? I mean, it's a new concept in India. It's a fairly new concept. In India, I want to start a cloud kitchen, but okay, I know 5 restaurant owners who are going to give me the business. Right. So, I mean, it basically starts from a local perspective, anyways, because of my comfort zones. Now, the thing of so that's also that then come back to me, saying how is your product going to grow or how is your service going to grow in the future? Have you looked at West Bengal? Have you looked at Gujarat? Have you looked at Punjab? Where is this business going to go next? What is the vision? If that plan needs to be in place. But of course, if I go, say I'm gone to visit a friend in Calcutta, for the first time in my life, I'm going to Calcutta. I've never been to Calcutta. Now I go to Calcutta, I find a problem here. And I say, you know what, this could really work here. That, yes, then you're getting to this whole new geography altogether, a new culture. And imagine the stark differences we have in our country, right? I mean, west to east, and we call West Bengal when it's actually in the east of India. And, when you go into West Bengal, you've got these different people talking different languages. Bihar, Gujarat. Oh, I mean, what a complex country, right? I don't think, if an entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur has, like you said, is ready to be mobile, he or she doesn't need to get out of India.
You mentioned a very strange word, especially for the younger lot of entrepreneurs. You said plan. Do you think a startup needs a plan to start with, or they can just go with the flow?
Oh,
Or is it
absolutely.
because plan is something that older people like us talk about? The very young people, when you talk to them about a plan, you get something like, "Oh, we don't need a plan. We are startup."
No, not exactly. Even if you're going to go and play a cricket game or bowl a six ball over, you still have a plan as to how you're going to bowl which ball and how it's going to go. Of course, you need a plan, man. And undoubtedly, honestly, entrepreneurs. There's one thing very common between entrepreneurs, and having been one failed one when I started early in life, trying to create a brand of bags, along with my sister who was based out of US. Total failure. Why? Because no plan.
Oh, so you did try. You
Oh
did
yeah,
try entrepreneurship.
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so
Definitely.
you're a
So
failed entrepreneur like me.
yeah, totally, yeah,
Okay.
completely.
Oh, I feel
But a
even
very
better now.
successful, not very successful corporate entrepreneur.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
without a
that
doubt.
I'll say I've been lucky there. Yes, I've been very fortunate.
So, what was the thing you can point a finger at today, in hindsight, to say what went wrong?
100% no plan. I think one of the common things, if I actually go back and see what are entrepreneurs really weak at, and this you can really reply better if I'm wrong. Number one, planning. Number two, finance, numbers. Entrepreneurs don't know numbers,
Yep.
right? So definitely that is something that they lack. Number three, lack of persuasion, or grit, or that belief, or that's number three. Number four, lack of humility, so cannot take any kind of feedback or negative feedback rather. Cannot kind of so that basically creates this whole where they cannot change, where they're not ready to change. So they're very, very firm in their belief, and they will not change because this is what they think they want to do.
Thank
So
God you
honestly,
said. Thank God you said all these things, because when I speak as a chartered accountant and tell people that to know numbers, they think I'm pushing a personal agenda. But the two things that I think, and I would like to hear your views on that. The two skills that I think a startup entrepreneur needs at the start. You need many others later, but at the start, I think the two irreplaceable skills in the founding team. One, you should be able to sell, the ability to sell, and that's where your persuasion, etc., came in. And second, ability to manage cash. If you don't know the difference between a balance sheet P&L and a cash flow, I'm not going to trust anything with you. Not just money, but I'm not even going to buy your products. What's your view on that?
Absolutely. I don't think that startup is going to go very further. Honestly, if you do not have that, that clarity and, or rather that understanding of the numbers. Because honestly, look, I mean, look, if I'm running a business, my focus is not on cash flow. My focus is on building value on a balance sheet, right? But if I'm actually building a business for valuation, then my focus is actually more on cash flow, right? My focus is more on how when I come to present to investors, I want to present on how the cash generation is going to happen in the future, right? Not on what my balance sheet looks like, because when the person actually coming to invest into it, they're not really interested in the balance sheet. They're actually interested in what the future balance sheet looks like or the future cash looks like. So it certainly needs to definitely need to know that very well. These days, very easy to learn. I was not very good at it. I remember doing my MBA and used to drop those classes till one of my
You were
friends.
not good at numbers, being a
I was
Gujarati.
not. No, I'm one of those, like my friends call me, a total dabba and gujus.
Okay.
So, yeah. But now I am. I'm very good at numbers. I love numbers. I think that's the whole point of
Let's
translating decisions into numbers.
let's move to another important side of leadership. For people like you and me who have traveled and lived in various countries, we are quite used to this lockdown kind of life because we are living alone most of the time. For large parts of time, we live away from our families, etc. For other people who are going through it for the first time, they find it very difficult. How do you, as a leader, when you're living in different countries, alien countries, how do you keep your own motivation, learning, etc., going? Because you don't know anybody, right? Where do you learn from? Who advises you? You
Everyone.
are the top. You're the
You
top. You're
learn.
the
You learn
managing
from. I think you never stop learning, right? Learnings doesn't have to be in a classroom. Learnings doesn't have to be by listening to Bill Gates or learnings can come from listening to friends, listening to people's experiences. Personal experiences can be translated into professional life, and professional experiences can be translated into personal life, right? So I think learning never stops. I'm big on learning in the sense these days I'm into a spiritual journey and I'm learning a lot. So experiences, things that I hear, spats in parties, people having a great time. Everything teaches me life. And everything kind of reiterates that belief system that I have, which I live by, because it just makes my life really simple. And I suppose that that's number one. Number two, what's really important is a quality that most of us don't have, which is humility. It is something that I worked really hard to develop. And I got a feedback from my global CEO in a few years ago, and he told me, Anuj, you really changed. And I said, how is that? And he says, you are so humble now. And I was taken aback because I had no idea, because that is one quality I never had. I actually still remember calling my wife and telling her, and she laughed on the other side of the phone. So
She
she said,
doesn't
well,
believe you.
now I suppose, I don't know whether we could dial her in and ask her now, but I'm not sure whether she kind of agrees, or even my friends kind of think I'm a humble person or not. But I think humility in a different way, where you're open to. First of all, I'm lucky to have friends who are much smarter than I am, way smarter than I am. So you're constantly learning from them. So you always feel fairly humble when you sit around them.
So
That's one.
hold that thought. So you said something very interesting, and we face it all in all our families and lives, right? If you sit in any family setting, you'll always hear about the failed geniuses in the family. People who are way smarter than anybody else, but did not become successful in the traditional sense. So you again mentioned it that you have friends and you have people around you who are way smarter than you, but they would look at you as a more successful person. What is the difference? Why don't they make it? What holds them back?
Yeah, I suppose the choices that they make in life early, and then I suppose it just becomes too late. And honestly, if you see one common quality amongst people who are super smart but haven't achieved much in life, because could be out of choice. is the superiority complex, right? So then you sit around them, and they will only get better and better in the knowledge that they have, because that's all they do. They just keep on gaining knowledge. And then they have this, in the back of the head saying, I'm better than anybody else, and even though you go and make $1 million a year, I still am way smarter than you are. I mean, yeah, hats off, yes, you are, but that's a person, who's kind of in the back of their mind or in their heart, they still, have a big regret of not doing what they thought they really should have done in their life. And I think that is something that does come across. But these are the best people who learn from us.
Now, the business you are in or the business you run is about cash, right? And you are not exactly, except for Singapore, the list of countries you've worked in are not exactly what you would call role models in safety, etc. Any exciting stories? Got a gun on your head anytime?
Nalin, there was, I think, 2001, I thought I'm going to get out of this. In Delhi, one of my gunmen got shot. So we had gunmen in Delhi, right? So gunmen used to use those double barrel, uh, you know, this,
303 rifle.
no, 303 rifle skill. No, these are double barrel, the ones you use for hunting. So I used to use those. They were all ex-army men, because that's what India allowed, only ex-army men with weapon licenses. So you, as a company, didn't own weapons. The weapons were there. So there was no servicing record, nothing. So he fired and fire. So one day these guys get attacked. Now, being an army guy, he's fired guns in his life and he's killed people. So he was not afraid at all. So he points his gun and he fires and doesn't fire. What happens next? Because his gun misfired. It did fire. He hadn't serviced it or fired it in a long time. Anyways, bullet goes from here, on the left, it goes in and it goes and stops about that close to his heart.
Oops.
And this is a 19-hour surgery, and being a young regional head at that time, spent about 18 hours of those in the hospital along with that guy. Came back, did not go to work for 6 days. Head in the blanket, did not get out of bed, couldn't do anything. I just can't do this. This is not for me. And everyone, in my house said, yes, this is not for you. You should get out. Why are you doing this? And that was one story which happened. But then again, it just becomes a part of life. And you just learn that, look, somebody has to do it, and someone has to take that brunt. And this is how it is. So don't take it too personally. So you don't take these things personally. You hear about, and for me, I haven't had, the crazy experience that we have in South America, for example, in Brazil and Argentina and these, the wild, wild west. So we have these attacks every day. I mean, one year we had less than 300 attacks and we were happy. So it just becomes a part of your life. Interesting stories. Yes, I've had many death threats in this business. A lot of them, but not because of cash. Maybe it's probably to do with unions and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, you go around with security for some days, and then you meet the union leader and say, "Look, we're really sorry, and you are the best, and I'm not, and let's settle." And then you move on.
Yeah, I think that will make for a better conversation when we are sitting one to one. But moving on, you have when we were speaking in your office one of the days, you were talking about having done a lot of turnarounds and something
Yes,
that you're wildly passionate about.
yes.
From a startup perspective, what are the skills that you apply for turnarounds? Because I would think it is the same as pivoting a business for a startup, right? Something starts working, then you do pivot.
I think first and foremost, the common thing in both is you need to know your business, right? So you need to know in and out of your business. Number one. Number two, you need to know how to read your numbers. So when I look at a P&L of a company in my business, I'm not talking about any other business. Let's just talk about mine. I look at a P&L and I know what's going wrong. At what level is it wrong, right? Whether because I know these numbers and the successful companies that I've been a part of, generally what the percentages should look like, or what the numbers should look like. And when you look at a P&L, that's the first place I start. Honestly, that's where I start. Second place I start is the organization structure, right? So then, once you got the hang of these two things, you pretty much have got it covered 80%, as to where things are going on. It's not just the number of people that, some organizations might be too heavy. No, it's not just that. It's also the kind of people we have in which place, right? So getting the right person in the right place is key, for being successful. In Indonesia, for example, it has taken me over a year and a half to get the right team in place, and we are still struggling. So we kind of fit everybody in, and then suddenly one person leaves, and again you need to find someone. So that is a constant thing that keeps on going. So getting the right people in the right place, and then to give them that freedom of doing what they, and going and making mistakes, right? So go and, because a person will only make a mistake if the person actually works or actually tries to do something. Only then can the person make mistakes, and then how you handle it, right? So that is something that, that's very important. But mainly, understand the numbers, know how what those numbers stand for, and number two, get the right people in the right place. And that's exactly how I've turned companies around in totality. Of course, in then the dark side of the story is, firing 70, 80 people.
Yeah.
There's something that, the other day I had to let somebody go in Indonesia, and he went out. Well, he was laughing really loudly. He opened the door, said bye to me, and left. And then my secretary came in and asked me, saying, "Did you fire him?" And I'm like, "Yeah, he resigned." And he says, "But he was laughing." I said, "That's okay. He was happy. He's going on. So you kind of got to learn the empathy, or that you have to be empathetic, towards, because you are in that power of giving jobs and taking it. But yes, so the dark side of turnarounds is firing people, and that's something I'm not very proud about, but that's something that you have to do. It's my job, and I have to do it.
Somebody challenged on the empathy front, like myself. Is empathy a skill you can acquire and learn, or is it
Yes.
something you're born with?
Yes, personally, I'm not empathetic. I'm pretty sure. I'm, I hope my wife's watching right now. I have sent her the link, and if she is, then she'd probably agree right now. She's probably nodding her head, saying, "I'm not empathetic at all." Personally, I can't. I can't bear people feeling sorry for themselves. Or yes, I feel bad, and you get emotional when something bad happens. But let's just pick it up and move on. It's life, and it goes on. And now that what happened, 2 minutes ago is now in the past. So now, let's focus now. So that is something that, that's something that I couldn't. But professionally, yes, I've learned how to be empathetic, and I think that has come with a lot of that has come working in Prosegur. It's culturally a fantastic company to work for. They're very what personal feelings are put forth. How are people feeling? Well, like, okay, so I'm lucky to be in a leadership position and get to talk to the top bosses, and they're generally interested in how you're feeling. They genuinely, empathize with problems that you're facing. Like, for example, I'm stuck in Indonesia. It goes a long way. Being away from family goes a very long way. So that is something that also this company has taught me too. I think it's very important. It's a very important quality, and yes, it can be learned. And yes, Nalin, you can learn.
I can still hope.
Yes, that is.
Okay, this brings me to my final question. So, is there a fun side to Anuj Zinzuwadia that we don't know about? I mean, what do you do for fun? You don't seem. I mean, looking at you in this interview, nobody will believe you do anything but work. So, what's fun like for you?
You want to answer the question, or you want me to answer it? Okay, I'll answer it. Nalin, my life is all about fun. Right? I live by this philosophy that nothing that's happening now, nothing better can happen.
Tell me
Whatever's
one
happening,
fun. Tell me one fun thing you did between yesterday and today.
I went and played golf today. I had a massive party last night, where it was a total Bollywood party where we danced, we sang, we drank like crazy, we ate great food. We had emotional atyachar also happening in the party. So, yeah, I mean, I'm all about fun, man. I mean, there's this, for me, life is fun. Working is fun. If I don't have fun in what I do, then I don't like doing it. So if I don't have fun, doing this interview right now, then probably, I might not make as much sense. Of, I hope I am making sense. But, in the sense, I have to have fun in everything I do.
No, I think you made eminent sense for entrepreneurs who think For any young person who thinks entrepreneurship is only one particular way, they need to understand that you can take the same entrepreneurial spirit and same skills and apply it somewhere else. And growing a business, setting up somebody else's business is equally hard, and the same skills are called to the fore. Thank you very much, Anuj. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show. And I look forward to interacting with you further and maybe call you back on the show one day and just check out a
Look
few
forward.
more things. Thank you, Anuj.
Thank you, Nalin.
Thank you. Have a
Thank you.
great day. Thank you.